Hello everyone, we are going to be looking at the potential for some more severe storms across parts of the more northern part of the US. Starting off, we are looking at the severe thunderstorm outlook for today. We actually do have a severe storm risk throughout parts of the northeast, the central US, and the northwest part of the US. So starting off, right here, we do have a slight risk for severe storms. That's a level 2 out of 5. If you're in this area, you definitely could have a possibility for some severe storms. Mainly, it's going to be wind and hail and a possible 1 or 2 isolated spin-ups, but really not anything too severe. Also, another level 2 out of 5 over here. That's including parts of Kansas, Colorado, and a very extreme southern part of Nebraska, as you can see there. You could also see a possibility for those severe storms. Lastly, there's that other level 2 out of 5 for parts of central Montana. If you're in any of these areas, you do have a possibility for some severe storms. Also, a margin risk around these slight risks, as you can see there in those dark green shades. Definitely could see some isolated storms in those regions, but really not anything too severe as expected. And also, lastly, that general thunderstorm risk, that's including most of the U.S. as you're seeing here in that light green color. You are expecting some general thunderstorm development, but not anything too severe. Here's a tornado threat, and we only do have that 2% risk for tornadoes in that green shade area. So really not that much of a tornado threat for today, but mainly it's going to be that wind and hail. Like I've said, here's the hail risk, and we do have a small hail risk. As you can see, up to golf ball size hail is going to be within this yellow region. And lastly, there's that up to quarter size hail is within all of these green regions, as you're seeing there. So really not much of a hail threat for this part of the severe storm threats, but definitely you do have a pretty good wind threats, as you can see, up to 60-mile-per-hour gusts within this yellow region, another up to 60-mile-per-hour gusts within this other yellow region, and lastly, up to 60-mile-per-hour gusts pretty much with all in those slight risks for those severe storms. And in the green shades, you do have up to 40-mile-per-hour gusts within those storms. Now, here's what we're talking about today. We do have multiple slight risks just like today, but for tomorrow, we definitely do have a more escalated risk, especially right in this region. You could definitely see a pretty significant damaging gust event within those storms. So definitely pretty much within all these areas, you do have that severe potential for those storms. Also the marginal risk, which I said before, you do have an isolated severe thunderstorm risk, but really not anything too severe that's going to be within these slight risks here. Now here's a tornado threat, which is pretty escalated across portions of Iowa and Minnesota. Definitely, if you're in this region, you need to be weather aware tomorrow for a possibility for a couple tornadoes in that type of region, and a 2% risk for tornadoes around that 5%. And another 2% over here for portions of the mid-Atlantic. Now over here, we have the hail risk, and hail risk is also decently high. We do have up to golf ball size hail right in this region where that 5% risk for tornadoes is, and also another up to golf ball size hail is going to be possible within that yellow region. Lastly, there's that quarter size hail region, which is going to be within these green risks. So definitely be weather aware tomorrow for a possibility for those severe storms as well. There's that wind risk, and we also do have an escalated wind risk. This could possibly be upgraded to a 30% chance or a significant chance for those wind gusts. Definitely, there's enough low-level winds that will produce those damaging gusts. Also over here, we do have the 60-mile-per-hour gust, and lastly, there's that 60-mile-per-hour gust as well within all of those regions, and we do have the 40-mile-per-hour gusts within those storms. Now we can look at the models, including a future simulated radar for this severe weather. Alright, so starting off here, we are looking at the future simulated radar, and we're looking around 4 p.m. right now for tomorrow, Sunday, June 28th. We can go ahead and go over to around 6 p.m. You start to see that development in the western part of Iowa. Definitely does look like a cluster of storms so far, but you get it to around 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. and you can really see how strong that Bo Echo is looking in there. I mean, this definitely could bring a pretty significant wind threat of what's showing up on reflectivity. And we can go forward here and you can get into 9 p.m. This is going to happen late night, so definitely make sure you have a way to get those warnings out. Looks like a very intense line of storms, not even a line of storms anymore. This, I would call this a bow of storms, just because kind of has that bow shape that's indicating it may have some pretty significant wind gusts that are going to be within this storm. And you get it to around 10 p.m. and this line of storms is still strong and still going by then. And you get it to around 11 p.m. Still, lots going on. You can still see some pretty damaging gusts, even though that reflectivity is weakening. You still could see some pretty damaging gusts. But you get into around 12 a.m. now, and look at the more southern part of the storms. That definitely looks pretty intense, but that middle part of the storm looks like it is kind of weakening that severe threat. You get into around 1 a.m. now, and definitely there is actually another line of storms that could pose a damaging wind threat, but that's not going to be the main line of storms that you're seeing here. So that line of storms here, or that Bo Echo of storms, has kind of split into two different lines here. And get it to 2 a.m. now, and definitely that line of storms down here is going to still pose that damaging wind threat. Up here, though, that might pose a more weaker damaging wind threat. So definitely these ones might turn into isolated storms. Meanwhile, those storms down here are still ongoing by the time you get to 3 a.m. and those are still going, as you're seeing there. And you get to 4 a.m. now, it finally does look like it's about weakening, as you're seeing there. And you get into finally 6 a.m. and those have turned into isolated showers and thunderstorms. These are still ongoing with isolated showers and thunderstorms as well. You get into the very early morning hours. And finally, you get to 8 a.m. and that severe thunderstorm threat is pretty much all the way over, as you're seeing there. Now here, let's look at the models for this, and let's look at the low-level wind. So the 850 millibar wind. Let's go ahead and go over to forecast loop, and let's put that over there. So again, those storms are going to be in Iowa. So let's pull this forward here to tomorrow. Definitely 39 knots. That definitely could pose that damaging wind threat, especially once you get into the late night hours. You're seeing 46 knots, 51 knots at low levels. So definitely that damaging wind threat is going to be very escalated for tomorrow, but really not the tornado threat is not going to be very high, but you still do have that 5% risk for tornadoes. If you did enjoy this video, I would ask you to subscribe if you are new to the channel, and make sure to share this video with any friends or family that might be impacted by these severe storms. Anyways, stay safe.